Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Jenny with Homeschool Teens with Jenny, and today I wanted to talk to you guys about how to create a high school elective on your own. Sometimes there are things that our kids need that there's not a specific curriculum already created for, or maybe we want to tailor it more to our kids' learning style or their needs. So, how do you do that? Well, the first thing is the general rule is that half a credit on a transcript equals between 60 to 90 hours. A full credit on a transcript equals between 120 to 180 hours. Now, your state may dictate what a credit is, and if that's the case for half a credit, just half the time. I know New York does that specifically. I live in the state of Georgia. It does not define what a credit is, and so we go by a generalized standard across the board. So, HSLDA is a good resource for that for you, so do check your state laws. But we have flexibility here in Georgia, so I account for credits. Half a credit as being 60 to 90 hours, and a full credit being 120 to 180 hours. Typically, our high school students will spend about an hour per day on their specific course. And so that's kind of how I count that. If I have 60 days or 90 days of work, half a credit. If I have 120 to 180 days of my student working diligently every day, that's a full credit. Hey guys, editing Jenny here. There's a glare. Let me take these off. One thing, my hair is going nuts. One thing that I failed to mention that I just wanted to make more clear is that typically when you give a high school credit, if it takes your student one semester, it's half a credit. If it takes your student all year, it's a full credit. I went on HSLDA just to kind of clarify what I was telling you guys, and it does say that, but it also says the credit assigned to a course generally takes into account the course content, the instruction time, and the time that the student spends completing work. So yes, hours factor in for measuring that, but like if you have a textbook and it's designed for a full year and you get a full credit according to the publisher if you finish that textbook, if as long as you complete the majority of the textbook, say 75 to 80%, then your student will automatically get one credit. So there's different ways of measuring credits, but I think when you're making an elective, it's probably the best judgment call to do it based on the amount of hours your student will spend on it. But if they are putting in work every day for a whole semester, definitely award them half a credit. So I hope I'm not confusing you. I'm going to show you an example of what I did for an elective called Career Explorations. One of my kids kind of has a good idea of what she wants to do. She has several ideas. One's more sciencey, one's more artsy. It's kind of a wide scope that she has interest in. My oldest, however, really doesn't know exactly what he wants to do, and so I wanted to just show him what was out there, give him some ideas, or just get him to start thinking about it. And I also read a blog by Kim Sorges Jones. If I can find it, I'll link it in the description below, where she talks about how she put this elective together for her kids and what books she used. So that was a good resource for me. So I just kind of researched and scoured around how I wanted to do it. We are also a Christian homeschool, so I wanted some books to be included that would point my kids to how to carry their Christian faith into their vocation. So those were some things that were important to me. I came up with a course description. Now, in Georgia, if you apply to a state school, they do ask for course descriptions for every course that your student took if you're a homeschooled student. They're not super homeschool friendly. They don't discriminate against you, but they don't necessarily make it easy, okay? Other Christian universities that we've looked at, like Liberty or Bob Jones University, don't have necessarily those requirements. They just want a transcript, and they kind of take you at your word that you did it. They don't need proof of what you used. So some schools will want it and some may not. And since you don't have 100% assurance of what your child's going to do, they can change their mind at any point up until graduation and beyond. I think it's a good idea, personally, to write a course description for each class your high schooler takes. If you have an eighth grader that's getting high school credit, it's a great time to practice your course descriptions. So this is what mine looked like for career exploration. What it does is just it identifies what the course was about, what resources were used, and how you graded it and what weights you gave to each assignment. Basically, that's all it is. It's not as hard as it sounds. So for me, I wanted to include 2 books. So the first one was Do Hard Things, and I will link these below for you. And the second one was God at Work. And the last thing I wanted to do, and I did cover my student's name for his privacy, was to take the Dave Ramsey career assessment. And so after reading each book, I did ask that he write a book summary on what was the book about and then take his career assessment, and that would get half a credit for his elective. So after God at Work, he wrote a paper, and this is multiple pages here. It's just double spaced. I'm trying to teach formatting and things like that. So he did a good job with that. And then he did one on Do Hard Things. Okay. And so basically how I weighted it was I gave him 50% credit for the reading assignments themselves. Basically, we looked at the allotted time we had and how much he would need to read each day to accomplish the goal. And so he broke it down that way. It usually was a chapter a day, or sometimes if they were short chapters, he could do 2, but he was also taking notes on what he read as in kind of a journal as he was going so that he could come back and write that book summary. So he was doing a lot of different things at the same time. And then I gave him 50% for the book summary and the taking the career exploration survey and reading through that. So that gave him half a credit in career exploration. So just to give you an idea of how I went about it and what I did, another thing I would suggest if you want to beef it up a little more, there's a couple resources I have found since then that we are going to be doing as a family. We always kind of hang out together at the end of the day. We come back together about 8:30. A lot of times I'm watching the baseball game, but I'll mute it. We'll sit down and we'll just talk about our day, what we've been doing. We might do a board game, but a lot of times we like to read together. And so these are 2 resources that we're going to do in the next couple months. The first one is Debt-Free Degree, and the second one is the Teen's Guide to College and Career Planning. I went through and looked at the different chapters. Now, this does cater more to a traditional school student, like a public school student or private school student. However, there are still very good chapters that are beneficial to homeschool families as well. So I tagged the ones I kind of wanted to read through and discuss. And there's a tab for senior year for kind of the end of the book, because it was talking about how to get ready for college, like leaving for college and things like that. So these are the tabs I just wanted to accomplish sometime this summer and into next school year, just so we can talk about it as a family. I really want to give them all options before they jump into something. So how can we do this without you walking out of college with a student loan? Yes, my husband and I will contribute to their education in some way or as much as we can, but we haven't really visited enough colleges for me to know that price tag yet. And so I want us to go ahead and have resources and references already studied in our minds so we can kind of weigh that decision with some kind of educational base and not just on an emotional whim. So that's kind of my goal there. So those 2 resources I would recommend too. You could stretch it into a year of career exploration. I think it's great to sit around as well and have really good discussions with our kids and just show them all the options. There's so many options. You know, there's technical college, which is usually a 2-year degree. Depending on, you know, what it is, it might be 1, it might be 2, it might be 3. College, 4-year degree, or you could get an associate's. There's just so many ways to go about our kids' future. If you really want to push dual enrollment, your kid could technically have an associate's by the time they graduated high school. I didn't really want to do that to my kids. They weren't driven to do that, but also I'm cherishing my time with them and I don't want to force them into the next stage of life before they've enjoyed this one. That was just my outlook on it. But if they asked to do it, we would definitely do that for them, but they haven't. But I just like to give well rounded information to my kids so that they can choose and know there's not just one way of doing things. And to be quite honest, I don't think it's a surprise that we're not in a great economy right now. And so when it comes to acquiring debt, I think it's a terrible idea right now in the economy we're in, especially handing that to a 21-year-old and hoping that they're going to take it seriously and be financially dedicated to pay that off each month. I personally, when I was at that age and I got out of school, I would not have done a good job with that. So I just want to give my kids all the options. I want us to talk about that stuff. That's not stuff that me and my family talked about at that stage. And I just want my kids to have a well-rounded kind of tank of information that they can pull from and that we can just kind of talk. I was a public school kid and we just followed what you were supposed to do. Being a homeschooler is really a lot different. It's opened my eyes to the fact there's not just one way of doing things, and our kids are not all going to do the same things and have the same interest. I think starting with a career exploration elective is a great way to do that. This was first semester of his 10th grade year. I would even start in 9th grade if you could, but 10th grade was a good year for these books. I think a 9th grader would do well with this, but this one was a little more deep. And so this one might serve better for 10th, but if you have a deep thinker, it's fine. It's not like a hard read by any means, and it's not a very long book, but I think this was a good sweet spot for us where my student was in maturity and everything to handle it in 10th grade. So I just wanted to go over how I make electives. Sometimes I can just go to Master Books or another publisher and pick something my kids are interested in. Other times they're just not available or they don't really cater to my kids' learning styles. And so you can do this. Okay, so that's it for how to create an elective. If you guys have any questions, please leave them in the description box below, and I will see you in the next one.